Welcome back, guys. We are still doing special types of linear programming problem, and in this video we'll be doing the assignment problem. So we have an assignment problem right here. This is an example of an assignment problem. Before we start solving this, I would like to explain a situation that we can encounter this type of problem. Assuming you are in an office, you have a company and you want to employ 4 persons. You have 4 job vacancies and you want to employ 4 persons, and let's say Mr. A, B, C, and D, and then you called for an interview and they came, and the 4 jobs that you have to give them, which is this, the 4 of them, let's assume the 4 of them can do the 4 jobs very well, and then the problem that you have now is you ask, and then you ask them how much are you going to do each of these jobs, and then Mr. A says, okay, I'm going to do the first job for $4, and I'm going to do the second job for $3. I'm going to do the third job for $12, and then the fourth job I'm going to do it for $12. And then you ask Mr. B, how much are you going to do these jobs? He said, okay, the first one I'm going to do it for 5. It's going to cost, the second one will cost you just $1, and then and so on. And that's, you ask Mr. C and gives you his list, and then the same thing for Mr. D. Then you want to know how much the least amount of money you spend to employ these 4 people for the 4 different jobs, and each of them will have 1 job each out of these 4. So how much are you going to, or what's the least amount that you can spend to get these 4 jobs to these 4 guys? You can say, okay, since Mr. B says he's going to do the second job for just $1, let me give Mr. B the second job, and then you give Mr. B the second job. Now Mr. B have already taken the job, and then you have already given out the second job. So what is the jobs that are remaining now is the job 1, job 3, and job 4, and the people that are remaining to give are A, C, and D. And then you said, okay, from the ones that are left here, let us just give the smallest cost here is now 2. So let's give the first job to Mr. C. Then you give the first job to Mr. C, and that is this. And then you say, okay, what's remaining here? We just have this left, and we still have this left. And then you say, okay, Mr. D says he's going to do the third job for just $3, so let us give it to him. And then you give Mr. D the third job, which have not been taken, and then you are now left with just the fourth job and Mr. A. And then you said, okay, let me just give Mr. A the fourth job. So right now you have given each of them the jobs, and then you want to calculate how much you will spend for giving them each of these jobs. You gave Mr. B has job 2, and then Mr. A has job 1. No, sorry, Mr. A has job 4, and then Mr. C has job 1, and then Mr. D has job 3. And then what are the costs for giving them this job? The cost for the first one is just $1, and then for A is $12. Spent $12 to give this, and then for this we have 2, and then you spent just $3 for Mr. B. So calculating how much you spent to give these people this job, we just be adding all this together, and adding them together we have 5 plus 12, which is 17, plus 1. So meaning that you spent $18 to give out these jobs to the four of them. But there is an algorithm that we are going to use, and we are going to be giving them the list. We are going to giving out the jobs in the least amount that we can give it out. So I'm going to wipe off this, rewrite the question, and then come up with the algorithm. Solving the assignment problem, there's an algorithm that we use to solve it so that we can get the most minimum amount that we'll spend giving out these jobs to these four persons. In the previous, the last method we used, we ended up spending $18, which is this is how we gave out the jobs. But there is a way that we are going to be we'll be using another algorithm to do this. And then the algorithm says the first thing that we do is we go through each of the rows, get the smallest cost in each of the row and subtract it from that row. So we go to the first row, the smallest cost here, which is 2, we subtract it from everything in this row, and then we go to the second row, we do the same thing here, and so on. So we are going to be doing that. So we have right here the first row, we have 2 is the smallest, so we subtract 2 from everything that we have here. So right here we have 4 minus 2, which is 2, and then we have 5 minus 2, which is 3, and then 2 minus 2, which is 0, and then 5 minus 2, which is 3. And then we go to the next row and do the same thing for the second row and for the third row. So in the second row we have 1 is the smallest cost here, so we subtract 1 from this. From 3 we have 2, and then we subtract 1 from this, we have 0, 0, and 2. So we'll go to the next row, which is this. The smallest is 3, and then we subtract from here, we subtract 3 from this row. We have 9 here, 0, 3, and 0. So we'll go to this place, the smallest is 5, so subtract 5 from this row. I will have 7, 1, 0, and 4. So right now, looking at this, the next step that we are going to be taking is to check for each of the column and see the column that does not have 0 in it, get the smallest cost in that column, and then subtract it from that column. So in the first column here, there is no 0 here, so we check for the smallest cost, which is 2, and subtract it from that column. So we do this this second step only in the column that there is no 0 in it after taking the first step. So we check for this column, this is 2, and then we subtract it from here. We have 2 minus 2 here will be 0, and then we'll have 0, 2, 9 minus 2 is 7, and 7 minus 2 is 5. And then this ones, the other columns that have 0 in it, we just leave it the way they are. So we'll have 3 here, and then 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 3, 0, and then 3, 2, 0, 4. So then after doing this, we now try and see if we can assign the jobs to the various persons. So how do we assign the jobs? We check through all the rows and check the number of zeros that are in those rows. So in the first row, you have 2 zeros here. So write it here, we have 2 here. And then in the second row, you have 3 zeros here. And in the third row, you have 2 zeros. And then right here, we have just 1 zero. So after checking out for the zeros that we have in each row, we pick the smallest, the one that has the smallest number of 0, which is 1 here, and then we assign the 0. So we assign the job to the person that is there. So right here we have A, B, C, and D, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the jobs that we wrote out here. So the first course that we are going to assign is this, which is here, and then we assign this, And then after assigning this, will remove this row, I mean this column and this row. So we mark out this column and this row. So let's use the red marker for that. Mark out this row, this column, and mark out the row, meaning that we cannot pick any other thing in this place and here. And then we check for the number of zeros again in each row, in the remaining rows. So right here we now have only 1 0 left here, so I'll clean that off. So we have 1 0 here, and then right here we now have 2 zeros left. So this is 2, and then right here we'll have 2 zeros also left. So in these ones that we just picked now, the smallest number of zero comes in this place. So we assign this 0 also. We assign this 0, and then remove that column and that row from our list, of course. So remove this column and also remove this row. Now we just have this row and this row left here. So we check for the number of zeros in this row remaining in this row. So this 0 have been eliminated, this 0 have been only 1 0 that is left here. Just have 1 0 here. We'll have 1, and then in this place we still have 2 zeros. So what do we do? The ones left, we have only 1 here, so we assign that 1 0, and then remove the row and the column. So remove this row and this column, and then we just have this remaining. I'll have only 1 0 left here, so we are just assign that 1 0, and then that will be our that's we have succeeded in assigning each of the zeros that are here. So let me just wipe this off, and then let's just put back our what we used. We have 1 2 3 4 for job 1, job 2, and job 3. So have Mr. A here, B, C, and D. And so how do we know the job for Mr. A? Mr. A, we gave him this job, which is job 1. So write it here. We have A takes job 1, and then Mr. B takes job 2. This is the place that we marked. So Mr. B takes job 2, and Mr. C takes job 4. So this is C takes job 4, and Mr. D takes the third job. So, and we check what are the costs for assigning this people this cost. So in this place we have 4 here. So this is the job that we give Mr. A. We gave him job 1, and what is there is $4. So we have 4 here, and then Mr. B took the second job, which is for $1, just 1, and then Mr. C took the fourth job, which is there for $5. So I have 5 here, and Mr. D took the third job, which is for $3. And then we calculate how much did you spend to give out these jobs to these 4 guys. So I have 4 plus 1 plus 5 plus 3, which is 13. So we spent $13 to give out this job to these 4 persons. We'll be doing one more example on this because there are some problems that you have to take more steps to get to get the solution. Right here we have another example on the assignment problem, but in this case we have 5 persons that apply for 5 jobs, and we'll be giving out these 5 jobs to them with the least amount that we can spend on giving it out. But and in this problem we might not just use only the 2 methods, we might also have the 2 steps. We might also have some steps that we'll take, but let's start with the first step, which says go through each row and subtract the smallest cost from all the costs there. So we go through this row. In this row, we have 2 at the smallest cost, so we subtract it from each of them. So 3 minus 2 here will be 1, and then we have 2 minus 2, which is 0. Then 7 minus this, we have 5, 2, and 6. And then for this place, 3 is the smallest, so we have 2, 1, 0, 5, and 2. And then right here, 1 is the smallest, so we have 2, 6, 8, 0, and 1. 2, we have 2, 0, 4, 3, and 5. So right here we have 2 as the smallest, so we have 0, 6, 2, 4, 4. So we have subtracted the smallest number from each of the rows, and then we go through the columns and see if there is any column that does not have 0. So right here we have 0 in this column, and in this column we have 0. We have 0 here and there, but in this column we don't have 0. So what do we do in this column? We check for the smallest cost in this column, and then we subtract that cost from every number in this column. So the smallest cost here is 1, and then we subtract it from every number in this column. So let's rewrite all these ones. So we have here 1 and 4, and then for this row, for this column, we subtract 1 from each of the numbers there. So here we have 5, 1, 0, 4, and 3. So after doing this, we now try and see if we can assign the jobs to each of these persons. So we have 5 jobs and we have 5 persons, and we have already taken the first 2 tests that we are supposed to take. So let's see if we can give out these 5 jobs to this person. So we go through, we check each row and check the number of zeros that they have there. So in the first row, they have just 1 0 there. So let me just write it this way. We have just 1 0 in the first row, and in the second row, we have just 1 0, and in the third row, we have 2 zeros there, and then fourth row we just have 1, and then the fifth row we just have 1 0. And then let's see if we can assign these ones. The least number of 0 is 1, so let's see if we can assign them. And then we go to the first one and we assign this, and then take out the row and the column. So we take out this column and take out this row, and then we check for the number of zeros that we still have left. So in this place we still have 1, in this place we still have 2, but right here we don't have any other 0. So since we don't have any other 0 in this fourth row, it means that we cannot give out the fourth job to any persons, to any of those 5 persons. So and this means that we cannot get a solution yet, just taking these 2 steps. So we are going to take the third step, which says find the least number of lines that you can use to cover all the zeros in your cost matrix. And then after getting the least number of lines, then you check if the number of lines is equal to the dimension of the matrix. If it is equal to the dimension, then it means that you can still get a solution just with this. But if not, it means you are going to take another step before you get a solution from this in this cost matrix. So we are going to find the least number of lines that we can use to cover all the zeros that we have in this matrix. How do we get the least number of lines that we can use to cover all the zeros in this cost matrix? So the first step that we are going to take to doing that is we go through all the rows and all the columns, get the number of zeros in each row and in each column. So in this place we have just 1 0 here, then the number of zeros here is 1, and this is 2. Right here we have just 1 0, and here we have 1 0, and then we go through the columns and check the number of zeros that we have in each column. So in this column we just have 1 0 here, and in this column we have 2 zeros in this column, and then right here we have just 1 0, and then we have 1 0 in this column and 1 0 in this column. So what we are going to do now is we go through where we first draw a line to cover the ones that has the highest number of 0. So this column has the highest number of 0, and this column also. So we are going to use a line to cover the both of them first, and then check for the one that has the highest number of 0 again and cover there. So we cover this column and we also cover this row, and then we just have this 0 here and this 0 here uncovered. So we can just decide to cover them anyhow that we want. We can cover them like this and also cover this one like this. We have this, and then we cover this way. We have one there, and so we have succeeded in covering all the zeros that we have in this cost matrix, but the number of lines that we have here is just 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we succeeded in using 4 lines to cover each of the zeros. But the dimension of our matrix is a 5 by 5 matrix, and so we have 5 as the number of rows that we have in this matrix. That's the dimension, and then we find out that 4 is less than 5. So the number of lines that we use to cover all the zeros in our matrix is 4, and it is less than the dimension of the matrix. So which means we have not gotten a solution yet, and so we'll take the next step. But if the number of zeros the number of lines that we use to cover it is equal to the number, the dimension of the matrix, so what it means is that we can still get a solution just like just with those 2 steps. But if not, then we have to take the next step. So the next step says, since you have covered all the zeros, you check for the numbers that you have not covered with those lines. So the numbers that we are not able to cover with those lines are 2, 5, 5, 2, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2, 4, 3. So these numbers that we are not covered, we check for the smallest number among them, and the smallest number among them is 2. So have the smallest number among them is 2, and then what it says is subtract this smallest number from each of the numbers that are not covered with your line, and then add it to the numbers that has 2 lines covering them. Like this one here has 2 lines covering it, and 2 here has 2 lines covering it. So we'll add 2 to these numbers that has 2 lines covering them, and then the ones that does not have any number covering them, we subtract 2, which is the smallest number, from them. And then these ones that has just one line covering them, we leave them the same way. So I'm going to wipe off this place, and then we take the next step. The smallest number among the numbers that are not covered is 2. So we'll have 2 here, and then we'll be subtracting 2 from all the numbers that are not covered, and then adding them to the ones that are doubly covered. So the ones that just have one line on them still remains the same. So 1 here has just one line on it, and it will remain the same way. So we'll have 1 here. 0 has just one line on it, so it remains the same. I'll have 0 here. right here 5 does not have any line covering it, so we subtract 2 from it, and 5 minus 2 will be 3, and then 2 does not have any line covering it. To subtract 2 from it, we have 0 here, and then 5 does not have any line. We subtract 2 from it, we have 3, and then we do the same for the rest. So this place we have 2 lines covering it, so we are going to add 2 to this place. So we have 2 plus 2, which is 4. The next one, 1 plus 2, which is 3, because 2 lines are covering it, and this one does not have any line, just 1 line covering it, so just write it out like that. So I have 0, 5, and 1. This place we have 4, 8, 8, 0, and 0. Right here we have 2, 0, subtract 2 from here, we have 2, 1, 2, and then right here we have 0, 6, 0, 2, and 1. So that's the last step that we will take to get a feasible solution for this problem. So after taking that step, what we do now is we now check, we try again to see if we can assign these jobs to these 5 persons. Check the number of zeros here. We have 2 zeros here, and right here we have just 1 0. We have 2 zeros here, and we have just 1 0 here, and then we have 2 zeros here. So what are we going to do? We are going to assign these ones with the smallest number of 0. So this row has just 1 0, and this row has just 1 0. So we assign them. We assign this row, and then we remove that row and that column. So remove this column and remove the same row, and then this place also has just 1 0, so we assign it and then remove that row and the column. And so we check the number of zeros that we have in each row again. Right here we have eliminated this, so we have just 1 0 left here. We just have 1, and then we have already given out, so we still have 2 zeros here, and then we have just 1 0 here. So we assign this one that has just 1 0, we assign it and remove the row and that column. So take out this column and take out this row, and this place still has only 1 0, so we assign it and then take out the column and the row, and so we just have only this row remaining, and we just have 1 0 here. So we assign it, and then we calculate the total cost for giving out this assignment. So let me write out the columns. So I have A here, A, B, C, D, and E, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, and Mr. A, we gave Mr. A the 5th job. So Mr. A took the 5th job, and then Mr. B took the 4th job. This is the 0 that we assigned. And Mr. C took the 2nd job. So I have this. And then Mr. D took the 1st job. And Mr. E took the 3rd job. So we calculate the total cost for doing this. So the 5th job for Mr. A, Mr. A took the 5th job, which is here. So we have 2, we spend $2 for that. And then Mr. B took the fourth job, so that is also 2. And Mr. C took the second job, we spent $3 for that. And then Mr. D took the first job, which is $4. And then Mr. E took the third job, which is just for $2. So calculating this, um, we have 2 plus 2, which is 4, plus 3, 7, plus 4, 11, plus this, which is 13. So we spent, $13 to give out these jobs to these 5 persons. So we'll be doing one more example on this, because on the next example we might take this step twice. So there are times that there are situations where you have to do this more than once. So we are going to do the next example, and that's where we'll be wrapping it up for this video. We'll have another example on the assignment problem, and how do we assign these jobs to this person. So we are going to do the first and the second step, and then see if we can assign them jobs. If not, we check if we can take the third step and then do it, and then try to assign the jobs again. So what's the first step that we take? We check for the smallest cost in each row and subtract them. So the smallest cost here is 3, and we remove them and we subtract them from each of the numbers in this row. So I have 6 right here. In this row we already have 0 here, so there's no 0 is the smallest cost here, and so we're subtracting 0 from each of the costs in this row, and so this row will still remain the same. So I have 0 here, 8, 3, 5, 8. In this column we don't have 0, and so we modify this column. So I have 6 right here. The smallest number is 1. Then we subtract it from all of them. We have 3, 7, 0, 5, and 6. Right here we have 1. So right now we have 0 in all the rows and all the columns. So we'll try and see if we can assign the jobs now. So how do we assign the jobs? The easiest way we do that is to check for the number of zeros in each row. So right here we'll have just 1 0, and in this row we'll have just 1 0. Here we'll have 2, here we'll have 1, and right here we'll have 1. And so we try to see if we can assign the ones with the smallest number of 0. And so if we assign this, and then this, and this, and then try to assign this place, we find out that here there is already a 0 assigned here, so we can't give this we can't give one person 2 jobs, and so there is no other 0 here. So it means that we cannot find a solution yet in this problem. So we check if we can take the third step. So what's the eligibility for us to take the third step? Before we take it, we check if we can find, we check the smallest line that can cover, the smallest number of lines that can cover all the zeros that we have in this cost matrix, and check if the number of those lines will be less than the number of rows of this matrix. So let's check the number of lines that we can use to cover each of these matrix. And how we do that is to check for the number of zeros that will have in the row and the number of zeros that will have in this column. So right in this column we have two zeros here, and in this column we have just one zero. Right here we'll have 1 0, same thing here and here. So we first cover the ones with the maximum number of zeros. So we cover this place that has the maximum number of 0 and here. So after covering this, we just have this 0, this and this 0. So we just try to cover them anyhow that we can. So we cover this like this and cover this like this. And so we have been able to cover all the zeros with just 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines. So we have 4 lines that we use to cover them, and the number of rows that we have in our matrix is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 uh, a 5 by 5 matrix. So, and we find out that the number of lines that we have there is less than the number of rows in our matrix. So we are going to modify this again and check if we can get a solution. So how do we modify this? We check the numbers that we are not covered at all, and then check for the smallest number. If we get it, we subtract it from all the numbers that are not covered, then add it to the ones that has double lines on them, and then leave the ones that has just one lines on them just the way they are. The smallest number that is not covered here is 1, and so we are going to add it to the ones that are doubly covered. Right here we have 6, and 6 is covered twice, so we add 1 to it. So we are adding 1 as our number. So add 1 to 6. Right here we'll have 7, and here just has one line over it, so we don't add and we don't subtract anything. So we just leave it the way they are. We have 1 here, right here they are doubly covered, and we have 4 right there. So add 1 to it, which will make it 5, and right here we have 0, and so in this place we have 0. After doing this step, we try to see if we can assign the jobs again. So how do we assign these jobs? We first start by listing out the number of zeros that we have in each row. We have 1 0 here, and right here we'll have just 1 0. Right here we'll have 2, and here we'll have just 1 0, and here we'll have 2 zeros. So the first ones that we assign is the one with the smallest numbers of 0. So right here we'll have just 1 0 in this row. So we assign them, we assign this, and then we assign this, and then we assign this, and then we'll remove the rows and the columns of the ones that we have assigned. So right here we'll have this and this, right here we'll have this and this, and right here we'll have this and this. And after doing that, we check for the rows that have not been assigned, calculate the number of zeros remaining there. So right here we still have 2 zeros here, and here we have no other zeros here, and so this means that we have not gotten a solution yet for the for this problem, because we cannot assign any job to any person. I mean, we cannot assign the fifth job to any person. So it means that we will still check if we can take the third step again, which says try to cover the zeros with the least number of lines. We have 4 lines here. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines here, which is less than the number of rows that we have in our cost matrix. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 rows. So 4 is less than 5. We have 4 less than 5. So which means we can take the third step. So Let me wipe off this place, and then we take the third step. And the third step says check for the smallest cost among the number that are not covered with any line, and then subtract it uh, from those costs that are not covered with any line, and then add it to the ones that are doubly covered. So you do the same thing here. Right here we have 1 is the smallest cost that is not covered, so we are subtracting everything here with 1. So right here we are not touching this because it just has one line over it. So we still have 7 here, and then we have this is not covered, so we subtract 1 from it. We have 2. Right here we have 0, and we have 4 and 0. So we have 0, 5, 1, 4, and 7. So right here we have 5 plus 1, which is 6, 0, 0, 7, and 8. And right here we have 6, 4, 6, 0, and 4. And here we have 0, 4, 1, 4, and 0. So we try to see if we can assign the jobs again, and then so trying to assign the jobs, we first check the number of zeros in each row. So in this row we'll have 2, have 1 0 here, we have 2 zeros here, I'll have 1 0 here, and right here we'll have 2 zeros. So how do we do this? We first assign to the ones that has only 1 zeros in them. So this place has 1 0, we assign it, and then assign this also because we just have 1 zeros in them, and then we'll take out the row and the column. So take out this row and this column of the ones that we have assigned. So take out this and this, and then we are left with this, and this, and then we'll check for the number of zeros again. Right here we just have 1 0. We have just 1 0 here, and here we still have 2 zeros. Here we still have 2 zeros. So we assign this one the smallest number of 0. So assign this, and then take out the row and the column. So we take out this column and we take out this row, which means we just have 2 remaining to satisfy, and then right here we just have only 1 0 remaining here. So we just have 1 0 remaining here, and we'll have 2 remaining here. So we assign this and then take out the row and the column. So have this, and we just have 1 0 here. So we assign it, and then we calculate the total cost for assigning this job. Mr. A took the second job. A took the second job, and then Mr. B took the third job, and then Mr. C took the first job, and then D took the fourth job, and then Mr. E took the fifth job. And then how much did it cost us to give Mr. A the second job? That should be here, just 0 naira. Wow. So I have $0 here, and then Mr. B, how much did it cost us to give him the job? We have the third job gave to Mr. B, so $3, and then C gave him the first job, which was for $4, and then Mr. D, we gave him the fourth job for $0. And then Mr. E, we gave him the fifth job, which was just for $3. And so we have the total amount that we spent to give out this job is just 7 plus 3, which is 10. So we spent $10 to give out this job. So right here we have total just $10 to give out this job. So you can also look for more examples on this and try it on your own. We're going to be ending the video here. So the next video will be doing the graph and the network problem. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next video.